Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. Our AI narration lets you delve into the wisdom of timeless books, extracting those golden nuggets of insight. All right, ready to dive into something big, like really big. Can we actually prove God exists using logic?
Yeah, see, that's what's so interesting. We always think of belief in God as faith, beyond reason.
Right.
But philosophers, they've actually tried to build a case for God using logic and observation, like a scientist almost.
Like a scientific problem.
Right, exactly.
So the stuff we're looking at today, it's full of these philosophical arguments, especially Mortimer J. Adler's book, How to Prove There Is a God.
Right.
Now, Adler, he loved using logic for the big questions. And here, he's trying to prove God exists without, specific religious stuff.
Yeah, that's a key distinction, right? That's what makes philosophical theology different from sacred theology.
Okay, so explain that. What's the difference?
It's the starting point. Philosophical theology uses reason, observation to explore, is there a God? Like a detective clues, right?
Okay.
But sacred theology, it starts with faith and then uses reason to build on that.
So different starting points.
Different conclusions, maybe even?
Okay, so to get Adler, we got to get this supreme being thing he talks about.
Right. And it's not about, the God of the Bible or any specific religion.
Right.
It's about a being so great, nothing greater can be thought of.
Okay, so not proving specific God with all the details, just that something supreme exists.
Exactly. Adler's focusing on existence, not all the qualities, is God good or loving? Or,
right.
We can prove there's a planet, but does it have life? Different question.
So how does he build this case then? What's the logic?
Well, he uses several arguments. Some are old, like centuries old. He touches on the cosmological argument,
Okay.
which looks at the universe and says everything has a cause, so there must be a first cause, uncaused, God.
The who created the creator problem.
Right. He also mentions the ontological argument, which gets, it basically says the concept of God as perfect means God exists because existence is perfect.
Oh, hold on. That's if I can think of a perfect pizza, it must exist somewhere.
It's a bold argument, debated forever. But Adler, his main focus isn't those. He gets into what he calls an a posteriori argument.
Meaning?
It's based on observing the world, not just logic in your head.
Okay. Evidence, clues in the universe itself. What kind of evidence?
This is where it gets really interesting. He focuses on what he calls a radically contingent cosmos.
Whoa, okay. Break that down for me.
Basically, he's saying the universe, it could have been totally different. Planets, stars, life. It's not set, predetermined. It depends on random stuff.
So not a clockwork universe, more like, we roll the right dice for life to exist.
Great way to put it. And he uses science to back this up, like the universe's origin or quantum physics, where things get fuzzy.
Fuzzy how?
Well, like vacuum fluctuations.
Okay, I'm officially lost. Vacuum fluctuations.
Think of it like this. Even in empty space, tiniest level, energy is popping in and out of existence constantly. That plays a role in how the universe formed, how particles work. It's randomness at the core of things.
So even at the most basic level, there's this chance element. And Adler uses that for his contingent universe idea.
Exactly.
But how does he go from that to saying there's a supreme being?
That's the leap, right? He's basically saying this random universe needs a necessary being to make sense. Something that has to exist, not by chance, because it just does.
So the universe is like a house of cards, always shifting. Needs a solid table underneath to exist at all.
Perfect analogy. That table, that's the supreme being.
Okay, so that's Adler trying to prove God exists through logic and what we observe.
Exactly. But, and this is important, Adler himself said, philosophical arguments, they have limits.
Limits? Like this whole logic thing might have holes.
Well, we'll get into that. Before we get to those limits, though, I think some examples would help.
Yeah, good idea. Getting kind of heady up here.
Right. We're talking about the whole universe. That's a lot to grasp.
So examples, what you got?
Well, fine-tuning. Remember how we said the universe is contingent, depends on all this seemingly random stuff? Fine-tuning takes that further. It says the laws of physics, the constants, they're all just right for life to exist. Like the universe was, set up for us.
Yeah, that whole mind-blowing thing where if gravity was a bit stronger or weaker or atoms were a bit different, know us.
Exactly. And to picture it, there is this analogy with gold and iron. Owen Gingerich, he's an astrophysicist, writes a lot about science and faith. He points this out.
Okay.
All the gold ever mined, all of it, would fit in a cube. about 55 feet each side.
That's it. That's surprisingly small.
Right. Now, iron, 6 hours of steel production in the U.S., just 6 hours, fills that same cube.
Really?
Iron is way more common.
Okay, so universe where iron's common, gold's rare. What's that got to do with fine-tuning?
Well, physicists can explain why iron's more abundant. It's the nuclear fusion inside stars. They're like giant element factories.
Right.
And the way these elements form, it depends on very precise conditions.
So it's not just random. The amounts of each element, there's a reason, a process.
Exactly. And Gingerich, he connects that to fine-tuning. Like iron's abundance has a scientific reason, so could the universe's fine-tuning, the way it's perfect for life, also have a deeper reason.
Instead of just luck, some people see it as design, right?
Mhm.
Like someone or something set it up that way on purpose.
That's the debate, chance or purpose. And here's where Gingerich brings in another example from astronomer Fred Hoyle.
Another astronomer, huh? Seems like looking into space gets you thinking about big stuff.
For sure. Now, Hoyle, he worked with physicist Willie Fowler. They made huge discoveries about how stars make elements. They found these things. Resonance levels inside atomic nuclei are super important.
Hold up, resonance levels. What are we talking about now?
Think of like pushing a swing to get it really high. You got to time it right, match the swing's rhythm. Only at that specific frequency do you get the most energy transfer. Swing goes way up.
Okay.
Atomic nuclei, kind of like that. They have energy levels, and for fusion to happen, the particles got to hit those levels just right.
Hit the sweet spot for these reactions to happen.
Exactly. What Hoyle and Fowler found is carbon and oxygen, crucial for life. Their resonance levels are perfectly placed for them to be abundant in the universe.
Perfectly placed. Sounds kind of convenient, like it was meant to be.
That's what Hoyle himself started thinking. He was an atheist, but studying this, he felt this precision, this fine-tuning. It couldn't be just chance.
So a scientist who didn't believe in a designer, the evidence swayed him.
It did. Hoyle, he famously said, a common-sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a superintellect has monkeyed with physics as well as with chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature.
Whoa, straight to the point.
Yeah.
He's saying the universe looks rigged.
You could say that, and that's resonated with lots of folks who see fine-tuning as like proof of intelligent design, but of course, not everyone agrees.
I bet. That whole super intellect thing probably caused some arguments.
Oh, yeah. Lots of scientists and philosophers reject intelligent design, saying it goes against science. If we say designer did it, they say we stop looking for natural explanations.
Like, God did it. End of story. Doesn't really explain much.
Right. It's a balance, acknowledging the mystery of the universe, but still trying to understand it scientifically.
Right. So it's not a simple yes or no, this whole thing. Nuance, different viewpoint.
Exactly. And that tension, design versus chance, laws of nature versus something more, that's at the heart of a lot of these God arguments.
Man, this deep dive is really showing how complex this whole debate is.
And we're not done yet. Remember those limits to Adler's arguments we talked about? Time to face those head on, see if his case for the supreme being really holds up.
All right, so we've got Adler's arguments, we've got mind-blowing universe stuff, fine-tuning, all that. But gotta ask, are there any, flaws in this whole logic thing?
Yeah, good point. Even Adler, he knew philosophical arguments, they have their limits. Intellectually stimulating, sure, but not always, proof.
So where do they fall short? What are the criticisms?
Well, one big one is they rely on assumptions that might not be true. Take the cosmological argument, everything has a cause, so first cause must be God.
Yeah, the whole who created the creator thing.
Exactly. Critics say that assumes cause and effect is always linear, like a straight line. But what if it's not? Especially in quantum physics, things get weird down there.
Like saying each domino was knocked over by another, so there must be a first domino? But what if they're in a circle? No beginning, just keeps going.
Perfect analogy. And that leads to another criticism, definitions. The ontological argument, it's all about perfection. But what is perfect?
Right, isn't that subjective? My perfect pizza, your perfect pizza, totally different.
Exactly. If the argument's based on a wobbly definition, the whole thing's wobbly. Building on sand.
Okay, shaky assumptions, shaky definitions. Anything else?
Well, there's personal bias. No matter how objective we try to be, our own beliefs, experiences, they affect how we see evidence.
Even philosophers are human, right? They have their own ideas about God already.
Of course. And with something like God, it's emotional, right? Desires, feels, that can all influence how we see the arguments, even if we don't realize it.
Like judging a singing contest, but your best friend's a contestant. Hard to be totally fair.
Exactly. Which brings up the big question, even if the logic is sound, does that make you believe?
Yeah, can reason alone get you to faith?
That's the age-old question. And as we've seen, no easy answer. Reason gives you a framework, tools to think about God, opens your mind, challenges you, but it might not spark that personal conviction, that feeling that many people say is true faith.
Like you have a map to a treasure, but you still got to go on the journey, face the challenges to actually find it.
Exactly. That faith journey, it's personal, experiences, relationships, gut feeling, goes beyond just logic.
So where does that leave us? Did we prove God exists with reason?
Not exactly, and that's all right. These deep dives, they're not about answers, they're about sparking curiosity, making you think, giving you knowledge to keep exploring these questions.
True. True. We went through centuries of philosophy, mind-bending science, even the personal side of belief. Maybe we didn't solve the God question, but we understand better how people have wrestled with it.
And that's a lot. Engaging with tough ideas, pushing our limits, that's how we grow.
Well said.
Yeah.
And to everyone listening, keep exploring. Dive into the stuff we talked about, find different viewpoints, challenge yourself, and most importantly, stay curious.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning.
Don't forget to check out Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go.
Yeah, you can find a link in the show notes.
Mindful Moments is full of bite-sized episodes like mini deep dives into science, philosophy, history, and art.
It's perfect for keeping your mind active while on the go.
And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on our next adventure in knowledge. Until then, keep those brains buzzing.